Dropside News reporter Ryan Grimm also traveled to Cuba as well, reporting on all this. He's seen in this photo here. And Ryan joins us tonight, and it's good to have you back on the show. The Trump administration is trying to end a 70-year regime. It looks like these guys, along with you there, are trying to help it survive. Am I missing something?
Wait, they're trying to do what?
Trying to help this regime survive.
Who is?
Piker, most of the people there. I'm wondering if yourself, along with them, are included in that. Yeah,
the group that went along brought about 50 tons worth of medical supplies and solar panels. That's right.
Medical supplies and solar panels, and a lot of sympathies for the regime that controls the country, I imagine.
So let me try to help out your viewers a little bit here.
All right.
How do you feel about the fact that when Americans travel to a foreign country, in this case Cuba, they are told specifically a list of hotels that they are allowed to stay in another country?
I went through it because when I went and stayed there, it was the same. I stayed in an Airbnb. I think if you have, if our country's trying to squeeze, our country's trying to.
What do you think of that?
I think our country's trying to end a regime that's been torturing people for a very long time, and they don't want to fund it. They don't want us funding it by paying money to a communist-owned entity like a hotel.
So if their system of government is so awful, why not just let it fail on its own? Why do we have to blockade them? And how do you think,
because they won't leave. They don't have elections. They won't leave power.
How do you think the United States economy would do if we cut off fuel for 3 straight months? No fuel has basically gotten into Cuba since the Venezuela operation.
Yeah, but I was there in 2019, Ryan, and it was still a horribly impoverished country. But we're cutting off fuel to try and get this leadership out. Get them the hell out of there because they won't leave. They won't have an election. They won't leave.
Why do you care about like who's in charge in Cuba? Who elected you to do that? It's such a bizarre. Like there aren't enough problems in the United States here for you to worry about. Like
that's another side of it.
Really, like I can't even get my mind to a place where I would think it's my call. Like who runs Cuba? Who runs Haiti? Who runs Mexico? Who runs Iraq? Who runs Iran? Like
that's a fair
Israel.
That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism. But I mean, do you think it's better for? Do you want this regime to continue to run this country against the wishes of the people?
It's not
that
up
are
to
all
me.
impoverished.
It's not up to me. I live in Washington D.C. I vote in Washington D.C. elections, and I vote in federal elections. Where do you live?
You live in that's fair.
Where do you live?
I live in New York. And it's not.
Why should you vote? Why should you? Like, what do you have to do with Cuba?
Well, I think the prosperity of that country that's only 90 miles away from our border can't be a bad thing. And I'm just saying, what I'm asking you is,
then why not let them import oil?
It's fine. It's not America first. Let's put it there. But do you think that regime should be running the country?
Why does it bother you if Mexico sells oil to Cuba? You live in New York. In what world is it a New Yorker's responsibility to stop Mexico from selling oil to Cuba?
That's okay. Fair criticism right there. My question to you is, why do you care? Why did you travel there? Why did you? If you don't care, why did you travel there to try and support the regime?
I'm a journalist, and the United States is literally killing people. We are killing people. I toured 2 hospitals. One was a pediatric hospital.
Yep.
We implemented a new rule in February that says that if you're a private business, you can import oil. You can import fuel. So the hotel where we were required to stay is allowed by the United States government to have fuel. Hospitals, because they have a publicly run healthcare system, are not allowed to have fuel. I heard a lot of people complaining that the hotel still had power, but the hospitals didn't. Not understanding, apparently, that it is a U.S. rule that blocks the hospitals from getting fuel. I toured the pediatric hospital. You know what the nurses and doctors there told me? They said when the power goes out, they immediately turn on their phone lights and race to the babies on ventilators.
Let me ask you this.
Because there's a gap between
hold on. I understand. We're killing babies with
there's a gap between when the power goes out and when the generator kicks in that can be up to like 5 or 6, 7 minutes. A baby can die in that time on a ventilator. So they have to take their phone, turn the light on, race, and hand pump the ventilator. Because the United States has decided that Mexico can't sell oil and fuel to Cuba. What does that have to do with the United States?
That's fine. If you want to say it's not America first, that's fine. But let me ask you this. How many tens of thousands of people have died over the last 30, 40 years as this country has lived in extreme poverty. 88% of the people live in extreme poverty. The government will not allow any kind of capitalism in to bring these people up, to bring the quality of life up. How many thousands and thousands of their own people has that government killed? We're trying to strangle out a government here. And yes, there's going to be there's going to be some negative impacts of that, like you just described. That's fair. But how many people have died because of the government in power?
I interviewed the number 3 guy in Cuba. Cuba. I will let you have the interview. You can air the entire thing. He said Cuban nationals, Americans, are welcome to invest in Cuba. He said they're open to, in a holistic negotiation, compensating Americans for property that was seized during the revolution.
Well, they're capitulating now, right?
What they want? No, they offered that in the 1960s. The United States refused it because we thought we were going to do regime change. So why take a deal if we're just going to do regime change?
Well,
we didn't overthrow the government. We failed over and over and over. We tried to assassinate Fidel Castro, like a dozen plus times. We tried an invasion, Bay of Pigs. It didn't work. Every other country, Italy, France, Spain, they all took compensation for what was nationalized. So they're saying you can invest here.
Yeah.
We will compensate you for what was nationalized. All we're asking is that you lift the sanctions and leave us alone. Why
leave the regime alone?
Leave Cuba alone.
Leave the regime alone and let the people continue to suffer. I mean, did you see the people there? The misery of the people that live in that country under these a-holes? It's horrific.
The misery is like unspeakable.
Unspeakable.
It is unspeakable.
Been that way for a long time.
It's a lot worse. It's the people who were there in December and people who obviously live there telling me like it's noticeably worse. You have people like starvation and homelessness wasn't really a thing. Like there was poverty. It wasn't like
extreme
a rich
poverty.
Country.
Yeah.
But even a few months ago,
90% of the people live under $2 a day. I mean, nobody in America lives under $2 a day. Not a single person. I gotta leave it there. I really do. You're a good sport for coming on, Ryan Grim from Dropside News.
You got it.
Good to see you.